All right, boys, let's attempt to do some still pretty early on potential contenders talk in the West. We're going to talk about a lot of the top teams by record right now, as you would expect. As always, the order of this does not matter. It's not a ranking. And also do some quick thoughts about still some other teams when we go farther down the standings, because as we know, the West is pretty loaded. I do want to start with Dallas. Luka's efficiency numbers have been better than they were the first 10 games of the season. The Mavericks have done a pretty decent job in finding ways for him to just not create everything for himself all the time. You're still getting a lot of your typical Luka ISOs, pick and rolls, hunting switches and all that, but you're also seeing more plays of him using down screens coming out of the corner, or maybe Kyrie or PJ Washington will bring the ball up court and then they'll just have a little flip to Luka and then they'll effectively screen for him so where he can attack off the catch. You even got the occasional time where he's it's not really a cut, but it's sort of him getting ready to catch the ball on the move as let's say Spencer Dinwiddie is running an action on the opposite side of the floor. Some of this is also due to them having Derek Lively, who is starting now, by the way. They have now made the switch for Lively starting over Gafford, using Lively as a hub for handoff actions and stuff around the three-point line. And so now Luka is having the most baskets of his career assisted this season, which is really cool. So decreasing his workload while still putting up his normal production, that's the dream thing for Luka and this team. So that's great, and hopefully that can deal with some of the stamina stuff that pops up with Luka sometimes, although it does feel like that stuff was a little more for the beginning of his career. I mean, the dude just took them into the finals, so let's not act like he's too far away from the perfect version of himself, but I do think this type of thing was the next step in that. So that's cool. Besides that, with Dallas, as they are now, 8-2 in their last 10 games, what I've actually been fixated on with them is who's guarding the best perimeter player on the opposing team, because they don't have Derek Jones anymore, right? So how does it happen? Well, looking at some of their recent games, in their last one versus the Clippers, they played the Clippers back-to-back, but Luka and Kyrie didn't play in the first one. They lost, whatever, you can have that one. But in the second one, where Luka did not play, but Kyrie did, Kyrie was on Harden for the first half, and I thought he did a good job. He was making Harden work, he was staying on Harden's hip, coming around screens, all that, and I thought Kyrie was doing a good job until the Clippers found these double screen actions where Harden would get a couple of screens and then flow up into a handoff action or something. Then Kyrie was having trouble staying with him, and then in the second half, they went more so to PJ guarding Harden. Harden did not shoot well in that game, so good stuff. In their recent win over the Grizzlies, where Memphis was up by double digits in the fourth, and then the Grizzlies had a disastrous fourth quarter where the Mavericks also got a whole bunch of free throws. And you had a couple of plays late in that game where, again, at the beginning of the game, it was Kyrie on Ja. Later on in the game, a little more Quentin Grimes, a little more Clay. Ja was able to make some shots that were defended well, but still he made shots over guys. And then in the last 2 minutes of that game where it was PJ on Ja, he had back-to-back really good defensive possessions of either screen navigation or shading Ja towards Lively, who can then just contest it at the rim. Again, Ja played well in the game overall, but they needed the stops when they needed them. And again, there was that fourth quarter was an outlier fourth quarter with all the craziness. And then you also had their recent one against the Thunder, where SGA had buckets for everybody, whether it was Grimes, Clay, Najee, Kyrie, Luka on a switch. Omax even ended up on him for a little bit. And look, Dallas's defense, they're once again projected to be a very good defense. They're 11th in defensive rating right now. I think as the season goes, they will comfortably be a top 10 defense, similar to what they were in the second half of last year. I will say that's the type of game where I look at it and I'm yeah, having Derek Jones here would have been nice. Not to say that he would have shut down SGA, but he probably would have made it a little tougher than it was. But still, this defense, the rim protection, the help, and the timing that Jason Kidd just nails into these guys, they get that stuff right all the time. Except for the Warriors game, where they did win, but sometimes you just throw defense out the window, I guess. I haven't even said that Kyrie has just been, great this season. Super efficient. Again, they're giving him some of these tough matchups, and I think he's putting in good effort. It might not be for the whole game, but he's doing it for some. Also, nice to see that Quentin Grimes is still worth giving 20-something minutes to, because, that first year with the Knicks when he became, a premier role player, and then he, lost out on minutes, gets traded to the Pistons, nothing happens there. Now, he's still good. His second year with the Knicks is when he kind of popped out. You know what I mean. Now we're going to go to the Thunder. So I don't want to take OKC's defense for granted, because it is great, and that's with Chet, of course, being out for a while here, and we still at some point are going to see the Chet I Heart lineup. I look forward to it very much. It's just, I feel like everybody knows they're great defensively, so I would like to focus a little more on the offense. Of course, SGA is amazing, as he always is. The three-point shooting is going to matter. We saw in the NBA Cup final, they did not make their threes. Of course, that's going to matter for everybody. I would like to focus on J-Dub, who I've talked about a bit. He was in my favorite players this season video. A lot of that because they were having him guard centers, and he was doing a good job at that while getting buckets, but now iHeart is back. So I wanted to see, how does J-Dub look versus really good defensive teams this season? So, the Rockets, he's had one great game against Dallas, one not as great game. Recent one against Miami, who are 10th in defense. And to start with that game, I thought it was really cool how he was able to find ways to just get into his pull-up twos versus Miami's defense. as they were going in and out of, if not a zone, then just like more aggressive help, I guess. Whether it was using screens off the ball coming out of the corner, getting a double screen up top with the ball, basically dribbling through almost a double team with, I think it was Highsmith and Bam, able to get into his pull-up too there. Then you had the NBA Cup game versus the Rockets, where the Rockets were throwing a lot of bodies at him whenever he would try to get into the paint, and Şengün also had some good contests at the rim. And so then it had to be more like pull-ups off the dribble with Şengün dropping back at least somewhat on these screens. Or just physical drives at Amen or Jabari to create space. I do feel like J-Dub has been one of the more physical drivers for a minute now. I feel like he should be getting more free throw attempts. So I don't know. He hasn't been like super cooking against every single really good defense lately. Like there was a Magic game where he did have like 3 straight drives later in the game that were really good. But before that, the Magic were just rotating really well on him to the basket to where they were contesting his stuff at the rim. And so while I do want to appreciate everything J-Dub's doing in the regular season, human nature is just going to immediately think, okay, well, in the playoffs, we think about that round 2 he had against Dallas where he was not bad, but he wasn't great either. Dallas did a great job of help defense, rim protection, all that stuff. And if you want to win a title, which they are good enough to do, then you need more than one guy to play great in those situations. But also this defense is so good, and we've already seen them do such a great job on Luka. That's the reason why they're the favorite in the West right now. It's totally fair. Now let's go to the Nuggets. Jamal Murray has had an interesting last 4 games against the Clippers, Pelicans, Blazers, and the Kings, where the jumpers were going in. That's nice. But also, it felt like he was getting more quick bursts of speed coming around screens, rejecting screens, whether they were on the ball or off the ball. And sure, Murray's never been a super athlete, but he's always at his best been able to do that. It also helps when you're playing off of Jokic, of course, but he was able to get back into a little bit more of that stuff. He just looked a little more confident with everything he was doing, and that's huge for them. It also is nice for the Nuggets that the Wolves are doing everything they're doing right now. And this one is not going to be as long as some of the other ones. The Rockets are going to be the other ones, because I feel like it's a little more straightforward with a couple of these teams. The Nuggets have Jokic, so no matter what the hell's happening around them, they've got a chance versus anybody. But keep an eye on Murray. Also, Russ has been doing some stuff. We love that for him. Now let's get to the Grizzlies. There's a lot of nice things to say about this team besides just Jalen Wells, which would be the 3rd time that I say nice things about him in a video this season. They are top 10 in offense and defense. Their most recent game against the Warriors, where the game was kind of over after the first quarter, like their defense between Jalen Wells gluing himself to Steph off the ball, Zach Edey doing a good job of like switching onto Schroeder or Steph a little bit, Jaren pressuring Draymond, although Jaren then went out in like 2 minutes because of fouls, whatever. Santi Aldama came in, it was still good. Their defense is really good. And then I look at like their win against the Celtics, where like all of Jaren's improvements were on full display, like the footwork, the crossover, the in and out dribble, the spin move, the way that he can like kind of merge his dribble moves into his back downs. He was doing that like a lot on Jalen, or a little bit on Porzingis, a little bit on Drew, whatever. He made the threes as well, so that's nice. And then they also gave the Celtics trouble with their system on offense, where basically everybody off the ball moves in the same direction at the same time. So like if one guy cuts baseline, then the guy in the opposite corner goes up to the wing, and then the whole thing's moving kind of like a clock. If Think of Basketball did a video on this, you know what I'm talking about. On top of all that, you've got what feels like Ja having maybe his best passing season, like the way that he's like able to what appears to be fully commit to a drive, but then pick the ball up in 1 second, then make like an overhead pass to the corner or to the wing or whatever. It sounds simple, but I don't know, it's cool. Or he'll be like looking at the shooter in the corner, and so then the defender will like start to shade that way, but then he's throwing a no look to like Brandon Clark or Jaren or whoever underneath the basket. Scottie Pippen Jr. and Jay Huff, just them once again proving, yeah, we can just find guys, whether it's Jay Huff making threes, Pippen just being a reliable ball handler, Tyus Jones isn't here anymore, it's fine, we'll figure it out. And then as all this is happening, you've got Desmond Bane, who's just kind of getting back from dealing with an oblique injury, I believe it was, to start this season, and also he had an injury, it was like an ankle injury last year as well. The best version of Desmond Bane is him just flying off of screens at full speed and getting into like pull-up threes and stuff. Again, a lot of things to like about the Grizzlies. I do think the question for them when we're talking about contender status is, well, number one, do they make a trade? They've got the stuff to get Cam Johnson to me. They've got contracts, they've got picks. If they want him, unless the Nets really want a lot for him, I feel like they could get him. And if it's my guy Marcus Smart who's got to be in the deal, then okay. I will say, just to be a Celtics homer, if they keep Marcus Smart, he's going to win them at least one playoff game, just from doing something crazy. Anyway, my big question, besides whatever I just said about them possibly being contenders, is, does their top-end talent compare with the other top-end talent in the West? Between SGA, Jokic, Luka, I mean, we can say many nice things about teams. Sometimes it really just comes down to that. And so you look at Ja, where, I mean, listen, he can pull off crazy dunks, crazy acrobatic plays, take defenders off the dribble, all that stuff. But when we're talking about the playoffs, teams are going to go under screens. They're going to dare him to beat them from outside. And look, Ja's so athletic that he can beat somebody to the spot if they're going under a screen on him. He can just turn on the jets in transition or bringing the ball up court to where you can't do that stuff as much, or he can just attack off the catch if you play off of him too much. Like, there's counters to all this stuff, and they're always moving offense definitely helps with this too. But sometimes this really just does come down to that. Like, I don't want it to be reductive. This Grizzlies team is really good, but we know how hard it is to win a title. So we'll see. I like them a lot. And then we can have that lead into the Rockets, where admittingly, it feels wrong to get to the 2 seed in the West this late into the video. Look, I love this Rockets team. I say that every time I have a chance to talk about them. The defense is great. I had Amen and Tari in my favorite players this season video, but they just don't have enough on offense to really consider them in this convo. Now, look, I think off of their defense, their physicality, all that stuff, they could still rack up a lot of wins, and hell, I think they could be a massive headache for somebody in a round 1 series, and if things break a certain way, hey, maybe they could pull off the round 1 victory. But they just need more top-end talent on offense. I mean, I love Şengün, even if his finishing stuff has been a little weird this year, but his all-around impact has been there. But between, Jabari's shot-making, Dylan's shot-making, Fred's shot-making, even if, of course, he's still the floor general and all that, on top of just what you're getting from Jalen Green night to night, there's just not enough consistent scoring game to game for me to be like, yeah, they could really have a shot at it. And I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think Rockets fans are over the moon with where this team is at right now. If you care, Jabari's shooting has been pretty good lately. And I really hope this doesn't come across as disrespectful because, again, I really like this team. Anyway, let's do quick notes on the rest of the West. The Lakers, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what the Lakers are right now. Like, their defense was better for a few games there. And then they lose to the Pistons. They commit a whole bunch of turnovers, and Malik Beasley goes nuts from 3. Cool stuff. The Warriors are, I think, 3-10 in their last 13 games. But they got Schroeder now, so that's nice. I did forget about the Clippers at the 6th seed. Clippers are good, man. It's just a matter of if Kawhi can be healthy. It's the same thing for years now. PG's not here anymore, but it's still the same story. Spurs, they're not contenders. That's fine. We love them. The fact that they're 15-14 is very good for them. The Wolves, yeah, the offense is rough. The Suns, listen, they were really good there in the beginning of the season, winning a lot of close games. KD went out. They started losing, and now they have the situation where Royce O'Neal is better with KD and Book than Beal is with KD and Book. D-Book's been out the last 2 games. And then we have Sacktown, where I may try to lump them into a video with other teams where things are not going great right now. I don't know. I'm not a guarantee I will. But look, there's conversations about lineup stuff where they're clearly at their best when Keon Ellis is on the court, but that's a bit iffy. And if Mike Brown agrees with that idea, Kings fans are yelling at Mike Brown pretty hard over that one. Their 3-point shooting has been weird as well, so that's cool.